So in spite of the fact that the IDF has actually withdrawn from southern Gaza at this point, Bibi making it clear yesterday the planned Rafah invasion will go forward. We could put this up on the screen. He was speaking in Hebrew here, which isn't all that useful for me, at least. So I'll read you part of what he said. He said, "Today I received a detailed report on the talks in Cairo. We are working all the time to achieve our goals, primarily the release of all our hostages and achieving a complete victory over Hamas," whatever that means. "This victory requires entry into Rafah and the elimination of the terrorist battalions there." He goes on to say, "It will happen. There is a date." This noteworthy for a lot of reasons. Obviously, as we've covered before, you have over 1 million Palestinians who have been pushed into Rafah in dire humanitarian conditions, who have been displaced there. Rafah up along the border with Egypt. Egypt has been very strongly asserting that they have a major problem with the idea that the IDF would directly invade Rafah. The U.S. government also pushing back on the possibility of a Rafah invasion, originally saying, hey, this is a red line, then sort of shifting and saying, well, you got to figure out the humanitarian situation first, but still raising a lot of concerns about Rafah. There were further questions after the IDF, as I mentioned before, withdrew from southern Gaza about what this meant. But Bibi here, Saagar, making it clear, there's the date. He's set on this Rafah invasion. And in a sense, I mean, for his own political posturing, that always seemed obvious to me that he wasn't going to back off of this, because the moment the war ends, the moment there will be a reckoning with him and his political future. And so he can't allow that to happen. Also, the most psycho parts of his coalition are very determined to have this full-on onslaught into Rafah. So that's where we are.
Yeah, we have evidence of that. We can put that up there on the screen. You can see it clear as day. Here we have Ben Gvir. He says, if the prime minister decides to end the war without an extensive attack on Rafah, he will not have a mandate to continue serving as prime minister, making it as clear as it gets for what is at least what is going on inside of his coalition. But at the same time, Krystal, we have some developments with the ceasefire. We're getting conflicting news reports. I'm not exactly sure where we stand.
Yeah, so let's put this up on the screen from CNN. There was a report yesterday. This is actually from the Jerusalem Post based on a CNN report, but they said that Hamas rejected the latest hostage deal proposal. You know, they always frame this as like Hamas is the problem, but in reality, there are negotiations going on. There's a give and take here. Some of the issues that I've seen reported are, you know, there's always this problem of Hamas wants a permanent ceasefire, and Bibi is obviously saying, listen, even if we get to some sort of a deal here, it's going to be temporary because we're still going into Rafah. So that's a sticking point. The number of hostages that would be released in the early phases of this potential ceasefire also appears to be an issue. Israel had been asking for 40 hostages, this is all based on reports, in the humanitarian category, meaning not IDF soldiers. And effectively, some of the reports indicate that there aren't 40 hostages in that category who remain alive, which is horrifying, you know, and we don't know the circumstances under which they may specifically have perished. But we're 6 months into a war that has been characterized by absolute annihilation, destruction, starvation, dehydration, cut off of medical facilities, et cetera. It's entirely predictable that alongside the tens of thousands of Palestinians who've been killed, that some of the hostages would perish as well. So this really confirms what a lot of people who were, including the hostage families who've been pushing from the beginning, and some of the hostages themselves after they were released in the early ceasefire, saying, listen, the way you're conducting this war, you have no idea where these hostages are. You're not keeping them safe. Every day this goes on is imperiling their lives. And so I think we have, through the number of hostages who have been killed at this point, sad confirmation that at least some of that was really true.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that they're not being able to even account for a lot of them. As you said, it is predictable considering that many were killed outright, either on the ground or many of them said that they were being bombed. It's possible to, I mean, we don't know whether Hamas, PIJ, any of these other organizations, what that level of treatment was like for these existing hostages. It's obviously a very chaotic situation. Many of these people could have been malnourished and all of this other. Anyway, it's very devastating. We did, however, see an interesting clip that came out of the U.S. State Department where, again, the great journalist Matt Lee just presses the State Department spokesperson over and over again, where he's like, hey, so if you were able to get aid in this time, why weren't you ever able to do it before? What is the line? And he's completely exposed here. Let's take a listen.
I will tell you that the step that they are taking now is important, but it's overdue.
Okay.
It should have happened months ago. A lot of these steps should have been happened months ago. We're happy that they're happening now, but they need to be increased and they need to be sustained.
So I'll stop after this, but in recognizing that often hindsight is 20/20, shouldn't you have put the ultimatum, or shouldn't the president have done that months ago?
So we have made clear to them for months what we expect them to do, and we have seen
Backed up by what?
And we have seen them take steps at our urging. And some of those steps have been important, but they haven't been sufficient. And all I can say is that we welcome the initial steps they've taken over the past few days. They represent a dramatic improvement if fully implemented, but we're going to judge them ultimately by the results.
So you could see it there, right there, Krystal. We're going to judge it by the results. We'll see, but he's unable to answer the very basic question.
Yeah. Democrats have caught themselves in a complete trap here with their Netanyahu bear hug strategy as led by the Biden White House, because their position has been, oh, no, Israel's not blocking humanitarian aid, which they had to say, because if they acknowledged that Israel was, in fact, instituting a siege, blocking humanitarian aid, using starvation as a weapon of war, then under our laws, we would not be able to continue transferring weapons to them. So they've had to deny that reality. Okay, well, now you've actually not even changed your policy, but just threatened to potentially, possibly in some undefined way, change your policy in the future. And lo and behold, you get some still inadequate but notable changes from Israel where it's very apparent, oh, all that they're not blocking humanitarian aid was a complete and total lie. It was a lie from the Israelis. It was a lie from the Americans. So you're caught in this bind of, what do we say about this now? How do we position ourselves? How do we acknowledge also the reality that we could have done this long before, but just chose not to? Wasn't a problem for us, a sufficient problem for us when we were watching a dozen Palestinian babies die a day from starvation. But when our buddies, aid workers, whose lives deserve to be, honored and cherished as well, but that was the line for us. I mean, it speaks volumes, and there's really no way you can get out of the implications of what we've all seen unfold.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.